My name is Sarah. I'm 35 years old. And 10 years ago, I watched my mother choose my stepbrother over me on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My wedding day became the day I buried my childhood for good. Growing up, I was never the priority. My parents divorced when I was 7, and for a while it was just me and my mom against the world. We were close back then. She'd braid my hair before school, pack little notes in my lunch, tell me I was her whole universe. That lasted exactly 3 years. When I was 10, she met Richard. He seemed nice enough at first, quiet guy with a steady job and a son named Connor who was my age. They got married fast, maybe too fast, and suddenly I wasn't the center of her world anymore. I was sharing space with a kid who got everything I used to get, plus more. Connor wasn't mean or anything. He was just there, always there, soaking up my mom's attention like a sponge. She'd make his favorite meals, drive him to hockey practice, sit through his games even when it was freezing. Meanwhile, I'd be at home finishing my homework alone or microwaving leftovers. When I asked if she could come to my school play, she'd sigh and say Connor had a tournament that weekend. When I wanted help picking out a dress for my 8th grade dance, she was too busy helping Connor study for some test. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet erosion. Year after year, I became background noise in my own home. By high school, I stopped asking for things. I got a part-time job at a local grocery store, saved every paycheck, bought my own clothes, paid for my own senior photos. My mom barely noticed. She was too wrapped up in making sure Connor got into a good college, making sure Richard was happy, making sure their new little family unit ran smoothly. I was the add-on, the kid from before, the one who'd be fine because I always was. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people. I met James when I was 22. He was kind, steady, the opposite of every unstable thing I'd grown up around. He saw me, really saw me, in a way my own mother never had. When he proposed 3 years later, I cried for an hour, not just because I loved him, but because I finally had someone who put me first. Planning the wedding was supposed to be exciting, but it turned into a nightmare the second my mom got involved. From the moment I told my mom I was engaged, she made it about Connor. Literally, the first thing out of her mouth after congratulations was, Connor just started his new job, so we'll need to make sure the wedding doesn't interfere with his schedule. Not, I'm so happy for you. Not, let's celebrate. Just an immediate redirect to my stepbrother. I tried to be understanding. I picked a date almost a year out, sent save the dates early, kept everyone in the loop. My mom said she wanted to help, so I let her. Big mistake. Every decision became a battle. I wanted a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family. She pushed for a bigger guest list so Connor could bring his girlfriend and her entire family, people I'd never even met. I wanted a specific venue, a beautiful garden spot that James and I fell in love with. She complained it was too far from Connor's apartment and suggested somewhere closer to him. I wanted my childhood best friend Emma as my maid of honor. My mom asked if I'd considered letting Connor's girlfriend be a bridesmaid since we're all family now. I held my ground on most things, but it was exhausting. Every conversation felt like I was fighting for space at my own wedding. Then, 2 months before the big day, my mom called. Her voice had that tone, the one I'd learned to recognize as a kid, the one that meant she was about to ask me to shrink so someone else could expand. She told me Connor had an opportunity, some kind of career training program on the exact same weekend as my wedding. It was last minute, not his fault, and he really couldn't miss it. Her request came next, the one that made my stomach drop. She asked if I could move my wedding date. Move it. 2 months out. Invitations sent. Deposits paid. Flights booked. She actually asked me to rearrange my entire wedding so Connor wouldn't have to choose between his career program and my ceremony. I sat there on the phone, silent, feeling like I was 10 years old again, getting passed over for a hockey tournament. I told her no. I told her the date was set, everything was locked in, and I wasn't changing it. There was a long pause. Then she said, I understand, in a voice that made it clear she didn't. She said she'd figure something out, but I could already hear the resentment. The week before the wedding, my mom called less. Her texts got shorter. I told myself she was just busy, that she'd show up when it mattered. I was wrong. The morning of my wedding, I woke up in a hotel room surrounded by my bridesmaids. Emma was fluffing my veil, my cousin was doing my makeup, and everything felt surreal in the best way. I kept checking my phone, waiting for my mom to text that she was on her way. Nothing. An hour before the ceremony, I called her. It rang 4 times before she picked up. The noise in the background was wrong, busy, echoey, like she was in a mall or an airport. I asked where she was. There was this terrible pause, the kind that stretches long enough for your brain to fill in all the worst possibilities. Then she said it. "Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Connor really needed me to be at this program thing. It's a huge deal for his career. Richard's here with me, we're supporting him, but we're thinking of you. We'll celebrate when we get back." I stood there in my wedding dress, phone pressed to my ear, makeup half done, and I couldn't speak. She wasn't coming. My own mother wasn't coming to my wedding. She'd chosen Connor's career workshop, something he'd known about for weeks and never mentioned, over watching her only daughter get married. Comment betrayed if you believe she deserved justice. Emma saw my face and took the phone out of my hand. I don't even know what she said to my mom. I just sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. My bridesmaids rallied. They told me I was still going to have the most beautiful day. They fixed my makeup, hyped me up, walked me down to the venue. My dad, who I barely had a relationship with after the divorce, ended up walking me down the aisle. It should have been a disaster, but James was standing there at the end of that aisle looking at me like I was the only person in the world. We got married. It was beautiful. People cried. I smiled in all the photos. But in every single picture, there's this gap where my mom should have been. At the reception, people kept asking where she was. I made up some excuse about a family emergency. I didn't have the energy to explain that I wasn't the family she'd chosen. After the wedding, I didn't speak to my mom for 6 months. She sent a card 2 weeks later with a check inside and a note that said, "Sorry we missed it, so proud of you." Like she'd missed a recital, not my wedding. I ripped up the check. James wanted me to go to therapy, said I was carrying around anger that would eat me alive if I didn't deal with it. He was right. I found a therapist named Dr. Miranda who specialized in family trauma. In our first session, I ugly cried for 40 minutes straight. She let me. Then she said something that shifted everything. She asked, "When are you going to stop waiting for her to see you?" That question lived in my head for months. I realized I'd spent my entire life performing for an audience of one, my mom, hoping that someday she'd clap. But she wasn't watching. She never had been, so I stopped performing. James and I moved across the country to Denver for his job. I got into graphic design, something I'd always been good at but never pursued seriously. I freelanced at first, then landed a position at a boutique marketing agency. I was good, really good. Within 3 years, I was leading projects for major clients. We bought a small house with a backyard. We adopted a dog. We built a life that had nothing to do with my mom or Connor or Richard. I made friends who didn't know my history, who just knew me as Sarah, the designer with the dry sense of humor who hosted great dinner parties. For the first time in my life, I felt light. My mom would call occasionally. Superficial stuff. "How's the weather? How's James?" I'd keep it short. "Fine, good, busy." She never apologized, not really. She'd say things like, "I wish things had been different," or, "You know I love you, but never, I was wrong. I shouldn't have missed your wedding, I'm sorry." Type yes if you want to see all targets hit at once. Then, out of nowhere, 10 years after my wedding, my phone rang on a Tuesday afternoon. It was my mom. Her voice sounded small, shaky, older. She said she needed to talk to me about something important. She said she was coming to Denver and asked if we could meet. Every instinct told me to say no, but curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to coffee at a neutral spot downtown. She walked into the coffee shop looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair was grayer, her shoulders slightly hunched. She wore this nervous smile that didn't reach her eyes. We sat down in a corner booth, awkward silence thick between us. She ordered tea she didn't drink. I waited. She started with small talk, asking about James, about work, about the house. I answered in short sentences, not giving her anything real. Finally, she got to it. Her hands were shaking slightly as she wrapped them around her mug. She told me Connor was in trouble, big trouble. He'd made some bad investments, trusted the wrong business partner, and lost everything. His house, his savings, even his car. He was divorced now, broke, living in Richard's basement. And Richard, her husband, had been diagnosed with early-onset dementia. He couldn't work anymore. They were drowning in medical bills. She looked at me with wet eyes and said the thing I'd been waiting 10 years to hear, except it was all wrong. She said, "I know we haven't been close, but you're doing so well. I see your posts online. You and James have such a beautiful life. I need help, Sarah. Connor needs help. We're family, family." That word coming out of her mouth after everything felt like a slap. I took a long sip of my coffee and just stared at her. She kept talking, explaining how dire things were, how Connor had always struggled, how she was scared they'd lose the house. Then she said it, the thing that made my blood go cold. She said, "I know I wasn't there for your wedding, and I've regretted it every day since. But I'm here now. I'm asking you now. Please, share this video so communities understand what was hiding." I set my cup down carefully. My voice came out calmer than I expected. I told her I remembered my wedding day very clearly. I remembered standing in my dress, calling her, hearing airport noise in the background. I remembered her choosing Connor's career seminar over the only wedding I'd ever have. I told her I remembered every birthday she missed, every play she skipped, every time she made me feel like I was an inconvenience compared to her golden stepson. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she didn't know how to balance everything back then. I cut her off. I told her balance wasn't the issue. Priority was. She prioritized Connor for 25 years, and now that he'd crashed and burned, she was here asking me to clean up the mess. I asked her directly if Connor was fine, if Richard was healthy, if everything was perfect in her world, would you be sitting here right now? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. That silence was the answer. I leaned back and told her about the life I'd built. I told her how I went to therapy for years to undo the damage of feeling invisible in my own home. How I learned to stop seeking validation from people who would never give it. How James and I created a family, just the two of us, built on actually showing up for each other. I told her I had a good career, yes. A nice house, yes. But none of that came from her. She didn't invest in me, didn't believe in me, didn't even show up when it mattered most. So no, I wasn't going to fund Connor's failures or Richard's medical bills. Not because I was cruel, but because I finally understood something. I didn't owe her my success just because we shared DNA. Her face crumpled. She said I was being heartless, that I was punishing Connor for her mistakes. I corrected her. I wasn't punishing anyone. I was simply not rescuing people who'd never once caught me when I was falling. There's a difference. She tried a few more angles. Guilt, obligation, what would people think? I didn't budge. I finished my coffee and stood up. Before I left, I told her one last thing. I said, 10 years ago, you made a choice. You chose Connor over me on the most important day of my life. You don't get to show up now and ask me to choose him over myself. If this shocked you, comment priority below. I walked out of that coffee shop and didn't look back. My phone buzzed with texts for days. My mom, Richard, even Connor himself, all variations of the same plea. I blocked them all. James asked if I felt guilty. Honestly, no, I felt free. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the weight of trying to earn love from someone who'd never valued me. I wasn't the little girl waiting for her mom to notice her anymore. I was a woman who knew her worth. The months after that coffee shop meeting were strange. I expected to feel something, regret maybe, or doubt. Instead, I felt clarity. Dr. Miranda told me I'd finally closed a loop that had been open since childhood. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't hoping. I'd made peace with the fact that my mom was never going to be the mother I needed, and that was okay because I didn't need her anymore. James and I started talking about starting our own family. The idea terrified me at first. What if I turned into her? What if I played favorites without meaning to? He held my hand and reminded me that awareness was half the battle. I'd spent years in therapy understanding exactly what damaged me. I wouldn't repeat it. We're expecting our first baby now, a girl. When I found out, I cried, but not sad tears. I cried because I get to do this differently. I get to show up. I get to be the mom who doesn't miss the play, who doesn't choose anyone over her own kid, who makes her daughter feel like the center of the universe because she is. A few people have asked if I'll reach out to my mom when the baby comes, if I'll give her a chance to be a grandmother. The answer is no. Not out of spite, but out of protection. I won't expose my daughter to the same conditional love I grew up with. I won't let her watch her grandmother prioritize someone else and wonder what's wrong with her. My child deserves better, and so do I. I've built an incredible life. My design work is thriving. James and I just celebrated our 10th anniversary, a milestone my mom missed just like she missed the wedding itself. We took a trip to Italy, ate too much pasta, laughed until our stomachs hurt. We have friends who show up, who celebrate us, who we drop everything for because they'd do the same. That's family, not the people who share your blood and then vanish when it's inconvenient. The people who choose you consistently without conditions. Sometimes I wonder what my mom tells people. If she plays the victim, says her daughter abandoned her in her time of need. Maybe she does. It doesn't matter anymore. The people who know me, who really know me, understand. I shared my story with a few close friends after that meeting, and every single one of them said the same thing. You don't owe her anything. One friend told me, you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone warm who wouldn't even hand you a blanket. That stuck with me. Looking back at everything, at the missed moments and the chosen absences and the wedding day that should have broken me, I realized something powerful. My mom's neglect didn't destroy me. It refined me. It taught me exactly who I didn't want to be. It showed me what real love looks like by showing me what it doesn't. Every time she chose Connor, she was teaching me to eventually choose myself. And I finally did. So if you're watching this and you've got a parent who makes you feel invisible, who only shows up when they need something, who's never been there for your big moments, hear this. You don't owe them your success. You don't owe them access to the life you built without their support. And you definitely don't owe them a relationship just because they decided to show up a decade too late. You get to choose who deserves a seat at your table. And sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is leave certain chairs empty. My mom chose my stepbrother over me at my wedding 10 years ago. When she showed up begging a decade later, I chose myself. And I'd make that choice again every single time. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button so it reaches people who need to hear it. Drop a comment telling me what choice you would have made in my position. And subscribe because I'll be sharing more stories about setting boundaries, choosing yourself, and building the life you actually deserve. You're not alone in this. Sometimes the family you choose is the only family you need.